Hello and welcome back to Artist Way workshop. We are discussing the final chapter. It is Rediscovering a Sense of Faith. And this is our last opportunity to do an artist date together. So I decided to do painting. And we've done 3 different projects today. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's hard to believe that our journey together over the past few weeks is coming to an end. First, I want to thank everyone who participated in this special beta workshop offered through me, Florecita Artshop. It has been an amazing, enlightening, and fun experience. This final chapter, Rediscovering a Sense of Faith, acknowledges the inherently mysterious spiritual heart of creativity. We address the fact that creativity requires receptivity and profound trust, capacities we have developed through our work in this course. Therefore, creativity requires faith. Faith requires that we relinquish control. And this process is frightening for most of us, which causes us to resist. We have been discussing all the different self-destructive ways we resist our creativity over the past few weeks. We examined how we threw up roadblocks to give us an appearance or illusion of control. We also examined how depression, like anger and anxiety manifesting in our sluggishness, confusion, and overall spinning our wheels are also resistance that creates disease in our physical bodies. Part of this fear is derived from the fact that most of us are not accustomed to believing that God's will for us and our own inner dreams can coincide. Indeed, we have bought the message of our culture that this world is a vale of tears and that we are meant to be dutiful and then die. Julia Cameron stresses that this is not the truth. She explains that our truest dream for ourselves is always God's will for us. This holds true for those who are considered artists and those who are considered hobbyists. It is the inner commitment to be true to ourselves and follow our dreams that trigger the support of the universe. Creativity in its truest form is a mystery, an unknown, and in some cases a dark, unfamiliar place. How can this place where God wants us to go be where He wants me to go? This may be one of the biggest questions we may have for ourselves. I have come to think of these opportunities to connect with God and the mysterious as a very real way to remain connected to the vine. In the Bible, it says that God is the vine and we are the branches, and as long as we remain connected with the vine, we shall flourish. If we are cut off, we will wither and die. Julia Cameron presented a great body of work to help us work on these activities like morning pages for meditation and affirmation, exercise and movement, creative artist states, providing us all with tools to providing our relationship with God or continuing our relationship with God and improving it. This does not end when we close this book. God willing, we will all continue this journey of healing through our serious commitment to taking ourselves more lightly and being more silly and having more fun by setting goals and boundaries. The artist date activity for this week was painting. We will have the 3 different mediums of painting projects so that everyone can do the one that best fits everyone's needs. Watercolor Still Life, Acrylic Pumpkin and Canvas Pour, and Oil Landscape on Canvas. Feel free to give each a try or the one that you prefer. I'm looking forward to getting the photos from this week's artist date activities, the photos from the past completed activities, and I'll be putting them all together in a photo album that will be posted on the website. Future plans are I'm intending on posting artist date activity videos and corresponding blogs throughout the fall and holiday seasons, so keep an eye out and please continue to have fun creating with us on me, Florecita Artshop. Thank you.
Oh, and welcome back. We're going to be doing watercolor today, and I have 2 of my great friends with me. They're going to join me with their own watercolors. We're going to be doing a still life, and there's a variety of different ways in which we can do watercolor. There is watercolor canvas, there's different kinds of watercolor pressed paper, there's cold press, there's hot press. So, and you can always just use your journal. So if anyone has a particular preference, obviously use that preference. But if there's something that you just want to give it a try, then you can feel free to do whatever you have. And if your mixed media journal is what you have available, then use that. I want to show you a couple things that is helpful when you are doing the watercolor, you usually can have some, if you don't have a canvas and you don't have a place, an easel to set things up, working from a surface is fine. A lot of times you can use these art boards, and it's a nice solid surface, but it also allows you to tape the paper, that watercolor paper to it. It helps give you a nice edge, but it also helps to keep it still so that you can work from it and make sure that it stays level. Sometimes you start to move things around and it gives you a chance to work. One of the things also I was going to show, I had given both a chance to look and find what they wanted. My friends, oh, I forgot to introduce you guys. Helen is here, and so is Amy. I apologize for not giving your names. But they have varied degrees of expertise, and so we're all going to be working on this together. Remember, there's no judgments. It's a safe zone. So there's different ways in which you can do a still life. You can do a still life from an object that you can find, cut flowers, an item, a bowl, fruit. You can do all kinds of different things that's around the house. So whatever gets your attention, go ahead and use that. You can also use it from a still life from a photo, and you can do a variety of different things. But one of the techniques that I learned from my first watercolor class was about like 8 years ago. And I was like, really? It's all about techniques. So with watercolor, you use a lot of techniques. And they would use, literally, they'd always have some type of a photo. And they showed me that one of the techniques is to, in fact, copy it. So you got your copy paper, and then you can copy the actual image with using like a photocopy or a tracing paper. Light boards can be used, and you can just trace the image onto your board. So then you can get the outline. It saves on time, but it also saves on perspective, and it saves on the edging, because what happens in watercolor that's different than most other ways in which people paint is it's the opposite of what you think, because it's all about light and you're working backwards. So if you started with like what I did, when I first started painting, it was with oil painting. And the oil painting is you're always putting in the shadows, and you're always working with the darks, looking for a light source, but you're always looking for the darks. So you kind of working that way. With watercolor, you're always thinking about the light, and you want to make sure that the white is kept, because you can't change that. Once the watercolor's on it, you can't erase. So you really want to make sure you're thinking about looking at the light and the variation of lights. So you're thinking white, and then lighter and lighter and lighter in tone. And what they use, a lot of the tricks that they use is a masking tape, a masking fluid. And I have it here. Yes. So I didn't tell you guys about this because I thought it was going to be a shorter project. But for the future, if you guys are ever interested in doing more, they have this thing of this little masking fluid. And it actually literally allows you. So once you've done your outline, and you know that, let's say I want all of this to be a different color, and I want all of these areas to be white. So I want to make sure that I mask off everything that's going to be white. And so then I know that that is my lightest color, my lightest area. And that way I don't impede onto that part. So that really helps you to make sure that you're keeping those areas, those lines straight, but also those lines protected from any water seepage or any of those types of things. And I wanted to show you from here so you can get an idea that regardless of what you're doing, if you're using more of this imagery with the masking fluid and then going over it. Oh, and if you're using masking fluid, I better make sure I stress this. Whatever you're using it with, like a brush or something, has to be something you're willing to throw away. It has to be like a real cheap craft brush that you just got at the dollar store, because the masking fluid really messes up the brushes. So you don't want to use a nice brush with this. Definitely make sure you're using something that you're willing to just toss at the end of that particular project. So that was the idea here. So you're looking at outline, perspective, but also using some of these different techniques so that you can accomplish more detail in your work. It gives you a lot of choices. So I wanted to show you that as options so that in the future, I've been working on this. I love turtles, so I was trying to do another turtle. I wanted to show that part. Then for those that are not, I went ahead and got so that we can use we're all doing still life. Looks like we're all doing flowers. So that's the fun part. So what we can do, just regular, I'm going to put this down here, and that we're going to first look at your picture. for your item that you're looking at. And if you want to use the whole thing, if you want to focus on one part, if you want to just look at a particular area and focus on that, I would say go ahead and do that. That way you can feel more comfortable with what you're working on. The one thing that I remember most from when I first took just a regular drawing class, freshman year of college, was the difficulty that we always do and what we do to ourselves is that we try to draw what we think we see. But the most important thing is to draw what we see, not what we think we see. So you really have to train your eye to really look at what the item and just focus on the line and following that line, whatever that is. So that way a lot of times we're trying to fill stuff in. We think something's supposed to be there. We kind of think there's going to be another piece, and we'll start to do that, and we'll add things to it, and we realize it's not actually it. So then if you really look at the angle. Other things that we got to look at when you're looking at still life is using other techniques and tools. One of the easier tools to use is your own brushes. So if you're looking at an angle, you want to match that angle with whatever you're looking at to help you with perspective, but also to make sure you're drawing that particular line correctly. So you're going to have, if your particular item is at a certain angle here, you're going to just match it with your brush. And you're looking at your line, you're going to look here, you're going to line it up. And that way, you know that your angle is going to be the same, and you're going to be able to look from one piece and go down to your paper. And then that way you're always staying on track with what you're looking at. It'll help you a lot with just kind of keeping perspective. And the most important thing with all of this is to have fun, right? So if it doesn't quite work, it's fine. Watercolor dries very fast. And so you have to kind of work a little fast. That means you have to have a little bit of guts. You just got to trust the process. Sometimes you just got to go for it. You can't be too timid because it's going to dry quickly. So just let it go. Water will also flow with whatever you're doing. So if you have a lot of water on the page, it will just go with that particular that area. So I'm going to show you that right now so you can see, for those who haven't done this. Let's say on a corner of your paper. Well, let's do like let's do the background a little bit, not just a little bit, but how about on the corner of your paper, maybe where you might have some sunlight coming in. You're just going to get your brush full of water and you're just going to go all the way across. About a 1 inch if you have one, or ½ inch, but try to do about maybe 2 inches in the corner of your paper, just not saturate, but get it full of water. And what you're going to notice here on this page is that, of course, it's wet, but you'll see that there's a line from where you left between the water and the rest of the paper. Now, if you want to have a particular color, you're going to notice I'm going to have you just do a little bit, so then you can always go and fix a little bit. But we're going to add some, whatever your background is. So if it's a sunny day, if it's the sky, if it's a certain blue, go ahead and grab a little bit of that blue onto your brush. And then you're just going to go ahead and let that flow right on the same water that you just put on the corner of your paper. I'm going to go down here so you can see what I'm doing. That might be helpful. There we go. So you're going to see that on that same corner, I've just got the water, and you can see how the way the pigments will just flow with the water. And that's the part that's what's beautiful about watercolor, is it can be such an amazing process, but you can just let it go and but the pigments will just continue to go, and you keep adding more color, more pigment, and it can allow you to have a whole bunch of different variation in color and intensity. And gives you that whole lightness and airiness that most people really enjoy about watercolor. I wanted you to see that so that you can see how that works, so that when we go to do the rest of it, you can tell that that's what we're going to try to do for all of these areas. And if you want to, I'm going to show you another little thing. There's different ways in which you can do watercolor that allows you to have a little bit more fun and just let it go. I'm just going to show you on this one paper here. You don't have to do it on yours. But I'm going to show you, so for instance, if we want to do a leaf or a branch, and I'm just doing this to show you. So you just dip it into water, let it go. You're basically drawing or sketching with your brush. So instead of a pencil, you're using your brush. And you're just going to allow yourself to kind of that's kind of going this direction. Here's my little leaf, my little branch. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to put a little thing here. But you can see that it kind of goes with where I want it to go. But if I put a big blob of water on it, see how it kind of just starts to flow a little bit, and it will start to bleed. You do have to be careful if you want a straight line, but if you want kind of that free flow, you can let that bleed, and you can see what happens there. And you can all of a sudden you get like a nice mixture of different things that are happening with just that leaf. And that's just a lot of just letting the water do what it wants to do. And that allows you to give a little bit of that area. And then if I wanted to do the same thing for a flower, let's say I wanted to do these like little, I could go up and I could just put a little, let me get a little smaller brush for that. And then you can kind of just let it kind of flow. And you can continue and then let the water just sort of allow it to just go with where you want it to go. You can just kind of give the impression, the look of that flower. I'm not sure if you can tell what's happening here. And these are like just little on a branch. I'm just kind of letting it kind of flow. So depending on what your flower is, if it's those little branches, those little kinds of ones that come up, you can just let that, the impression kind of occur, and let the water just do what it wants to do. It doesn't have to be this perfect little line. You can just let it flow. That's what's so nice about watercolors. You have choices. And see what's happening with me dipping around. And I don't know if you can tell. There is a lot of little splatter, and that will happen naturally if you just want that free flow in watercolor. You'll just see this little natural splatter occurring just from that area. And sometimes people go back in and do the splatter just to add some more splatter. But then here, let's say I've done this. Now I want to go back in and I want to add those little leaves and little branches. And so that's what I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to let that go. Now all of a sudden I have myself. And it's just letting that the water do what it wants to do. So there's no particular thing that has to be, and it can be whatever you feel comfortable. And then all of a sudden you have yourself a nice little, branch, a little twig of lavender of some sort, something type of, or cousin of it. And you can let that happen. Or if you want to do others with like a rose or a tulip, or if you really want to get into more detail, you can use a finer brush, or hold on, can you see that? A little bit finer brush, and you can get the real lines and real details if you want to do that as well. So let's go ahead and get started with your particular one, and go ahead and decide. Remember way back when we're talking about the composition or of your paper, or how you want to do things. You want to think of it like in thirds. So wherever you want to start, you want to kind of make sure it's already interesting in where you're starting. People sometimes use a triangle. Some people sometimes use the thirds, so wherever you want to start it, you want to kind of have it being just a little bit off center. It gives it a little bit more interest. So if you want to make sure that it's just a little bit off of the middle center, wherever you're placing it, so that it provides a little bit more interest to your paper. It's just how our eyes will naturally flow and allow you to see what you're able to create. So go ahead and get yourself, just go ahead, and again, you have to have just the courage to just go for it. Let yourself hit the water and the brushes. The watercolors that you're using can be anything that you have available to you. So it doesn't have to be anything from the real expensive sets, or anything that feels comfortable. It can be any set that you have. I still use this one for most of my just general sketches. It's just a basic one I got. But you can mix all your colors from primary colors, so you can just mix them together. The one thing I will encourage you to use when it comes to any coloring is not to use black unless you have to. To use the complementary color tone will help you get a shadow if you want to make something a little bit darker. But use the opposite color, and that'll help you to make it come out. But it also will help make the blacks tends to recede in a painting, and it can sometimes make like a dead space. So unless you need to use black for a specific thing, I would try not to use black. You choose any other colors, a complementary color. It'll allow the painting to look have more depth and clarity in what you're trying to do. So does anyone have any questions so far?
So do you usually wet your paper first, or you wet your brush, then dip it in the paint, and then paint on your page?
It depends on what I'm starting with, but I tend to do it where I tend to do the painting first. And so I will tend to use the brush first, and I'll go this way. Unless I'm doing what I showed you, like if I already copied something and I'm masking it off, then I already know that the whites are already white and that type of thing. But if I'm trying to just get an image down, I'll paint the image first, and then I'll decide what my background is going to be. But some people will decide their background and then they'll move into the middle. So it depends on your own personal style. But because sometimes when you're doing that background, if you do that background first and you say, I'm going to have a blue background, I'm going to have a pretty light sky, you might go ahead and do the whole thing in that nice pretty blue, let that dry, then come back in and put in whatever you want to add. So it can make it a little bit more even. You don't have as many variations. I like personally myself, I like having more of that free flow, but I also like having a straight line. So it depends on the actual image that I'm trying to get out. And most of the time I just like it to let it do what it wants to do. I think that's the fun of watercolor. So I see, what are you guys working on? You don't have to show me, but what are the flowers you're working on?
Well, I'm trying to pick something out of this monster of a flower.
Oh, how pretty. You know what's so nice about that one is that you could really let that be you can really just let it go. So that's the fun part about the nice wildflower bunch is you can, like I just did with the greenery.
Yes.
Give yourself, just go ahead and kind of start a little bit of greenery, kind of like branch out a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of that greenery, just a little bit, just to give you some structure. And then just go in and let the different colors flow. Just put a little image in there from the color and just do like just play with that and see how that goes. I think that's the fun part about the wildflowers, because you can just let the colors mix and blend, and you can create just the shape. You're just looking at the shapes. And you really just want to allow that to go, and you can create a whole bunch of fun things with that. And there's no rhyme or reason to have to be a specific thing. You just want to get the image, or in the shape of it, and then you just let the water, and then kind of just play with that. The only thing is if you want more white in something, if you want to highlight or accent a particular thing or show the sunlight coming through, then you kind of make sure that you're offering like a little bit of space in between the shapes that you're using. That way you can give more of that light to come in. That's the only thing you want to make sure you have.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So how about you, Amy? What is your, I see sunflower. Did you decide to do the whole bunch, or are you doing?
No, I'm just trying to do one. I'm just playing. I don't know how it's going to turn out. We'll see. You said a series, so this just might be my trial.
Exactly. That's what's so nice. Like when you're doing and you're thinking like, oh, do I want that or not? That's part of the thing that it allows people to just experiment. Is okay, maybe I'm going to do this angle. I'm going to do the same one from the back of it. Then I maybe try again, and maybe I'll try to really get the whole picture together, and then you can kind of see what happens from there.
And I'm using some new paint, so I think I'm just playing, but that's okay.
Well, that's exactly okay. It's the fun part. And remember, this is your world, right? This is your fun time to enjoy with our artist date. So if you want the same colors, then great. If you want to try to copy it exactly, no problem. If you say, okay, I like that flower, but maybe it's a little dull. I want to change it up. Go ahead and just allow yourself to take that in and allow yourself to experiment. And just say, okay, maybe I'm going to put this here, or I don't like this flower as much. I'm going to add this one. And that's exactly fine. It's your world, your painting. So you can make it any way you want. It's hard to believe that this is the final part of this workshop. It really is. I've been thinking about like, wow, like there's been some ups and downs trying to make it all happen, and not always so easy. And then now, like, wow, this is it. So we're gonna. It's fun being able to paint, though. Have it go back to the painting.
It's all been fun. I just got my notebook out again. I was looking through it.
I'm hoping to put together a little gallery of all the submitted pictures. So if you have some, or you finished one and you think, oh, I didn't put that one before or something, or I like to show this one, go ahead and send them to me so I can make sure that they're posted in a little gallery. I'll have it on the website. I may add some to the like a social media, but most of the time I'll just have it on the website itself. You can see what we've done, what we've accomplished. As you can see, Helen, 'cause I know you haven't quite done this as much, but when it starts to dry, you'll see how the pigment kind of sometimes will collect in a certain spot. And if you add more water to your brush, you can actually kind of push that pigment to the side and get more to one area. You can create a little shadow if you want, but you can also go back into that space. So let's say, oh wait, it's kind of bleeding over here, but I don't really want that there. You can always kind of go back with a little bit of water. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, paper towels are always good for this. If you want to, like, let's say I got a big little pile of water right there, and I don't like that. I can always go. I can absorb that, pull it up, and I can kind of help myself with like not as much in that area and go back in with a different color. Or if I want to let that dry entirely, and I can then go back in and the other thing you can also do is go back in later with some watercolor pencils. And you can do some fine lines and do some more specifics, but you can kind of lighten it a little bit. If you're feeling like you're getting too much water on there, you can definitely help yourself with the paper towels. Or if you want to go back in and like really maybe lighten up a space, or really let that space, you can just use the brush and go back over it with that water, and all of a sudden you get yourself a little bit lighter space there, and all of a sudden you got a whole another dimension to your flower.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I discovered most with watercolor is just the you kind of have to not have any fear with watercolor. It's easy to have fear with painting, but and ink. I always like that one is the one that does scare me too. Like sometimes I'll be afraid to use it, but it you kind of have to just let it go, and then sometimes just don't fight it as much as like just allow the water to flow. But you can find techniques to help you get a little bit more of what you really want out of it and accomplish what you're looking at or what you want to have in your painting. I don't know if you can hear this, but my little puppy, I call her my puppy. She's older now, but she's snoring. Yeah, he's just enjoying this painting so much that She's not. All right, so do a little check-in. How are we doing? Does it feel like? Oh, and the other thing I should make sure I'm telling you guys is with any painting, any color, any drawing, you want to be thinking about where your light source is coming from. Is it from the sky? Is it from the top? Is it coming from the left, from the right? So when you are looking at different areas, where is that light going to be? So that area is going to be lighter than the rest, right? And so you want to make sure that you're allowing for those lights on that side so that you can capture the light source, and that gives your drawing, painting, whatever you're working on, dimension and realistic perspective. So it really helps you to be able to see that. So the more you are able to think about where that light source is and the kind of lighting, making that gradation, the closer you are to an object, you'll see that it's going to be darker. It's going to look like it's closer, and the further away, the lighter it is as well. So light source and then dimension. So that way you're looking at that as well. Maybe it depending on where you're at, how much of a still life are you doing it from the window? Are you doing from like what we're doing now? But I want to make sure I told you to pay attention to your light source. Sometimes we forget that and we get going, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's right. Where is my light source? What am I doing? So sometimes it can cause a little frustration. So when you guys were getting ready for this, what was your your biggest fear?
Being recorded.
Being on time. Not messing up the schedule.
Oh no. We're all good. We're all good. It's nice to be able to have you guys join me on this. This is great.
Well, I think it's been about 40 years since I watercolored, so this is a little intimidating.
Did you do watercolor like for a class or just for fun, or did you have some?
No, just as a class in elementary school, actually.
Oh, really? Well,
I don't think. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I did some in junior high, but like I said, it's been a while since I've done this.
well, it's
I
about.
failed watercolor in high school, but I liked other kinds of painting. So I'm like, oh, watercolor, great.
Well, and that was the thing, I liked watercolor, but I originally learned with oil, and so when that's your first one, so you kind of like get used to that. And oil is definitely a different ball game altogether. For sure. What's nice about oil is that it doesn't dry as fast. So, and you have other like a linseed oil and different types of mediums that you can let it dry even slower. So you can go back in and rework a piece a lot. And so you can have, weeks to work on something versus, or even months, depending on how much you're doing. And so that really can make it a little easier for certain types of painting and portraiture and that type of stuff. Watercolor do not have that luxury. So when I decided to try watercolor, it was freeing in one sense, but certainly a little bit difficult to kind of allow myself to relax because it's not my normal way of doing it. So I kept wanting to go the other way, and it is a mindset change. It was definitely a change in how I would see it.
I actually kind of like it. It's kind of fun to just see
Yes.
what happens with the water. And since I've convinced myself this is only a trial, not a masterpiece,
Exactly.
I'm good with that.
That's what's so nice about this whole thing about the art estates, is that it is just to have fun and to allow ourselves that freedom. And
that you're going to be grading me. Thank you.
no grading here. As long as we don't do it to ourselves, that's the most important thing. Because it's so easy to do and make it, oh, it's terrible, that type of thing. But no, it doesn't even have to be this perfect thing. But if you find it beautiful, then that's what matters, right? And if the colors make you smile, then it doesn't have to be a Picasso. And nobody has to be that all the time. Even if you are a Picasso, you don't have to be Picasso every day. You're allowed to be able to, make something. And sometimes that's how you learn in general, but sometimes that's how you also, maybe discover a new technique. Maybe a mistake kind of can, or at least in your mind, a mistake can turn into something that's even better. And then all of a sudden you got yourself a whole another way of doing something, a new technique in general, or just a new perspective. Kind of think I don't want that. I was going to put a leaf there, but I don't think I like it there. I'm going to play with that just a tad. And some of the most exciting parts about any one of the kinds of still lives and things that we try to do is just sometimes just finding things around the house, but fruit, or then about this time of year too, like gourds and pumpkins are always fun to try to water paint because of the color, but then you can also get like shape and one always said, but the shadowing and that type of stuff. So you can have a lot of fun with that. Watercoloring, just things around the house, but certainly like the things for seasonal items can be a lot of fun as well. Do you have any questions about color mixing, anything like that? I want to make sure I'm answering anything, the curiosities or.
How would you watercolor a vase?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so, well, what color is your vase to begin with? Let's see.
It's clear.
Clear. Okay, so it usually has a little tint of something in it. So you're going to start with the outline of it, and it's going to be, you're going to start off with a little area to mix. And I would start with a little blue. And a little kind of a lighter color, the lightest color you have. Do you have a white or yellow or anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay, do that, add that in there. It's going to be a little kind of a milky color now. And then you're going to want it real faint. So you're going to make that in there. It's going to be real faint, just a little bit of blue, mostly. I'm trying to get that in there. It's a little too yellow in that, making it a little too green. Definitely want more blue. If you don't have enough in there, you can add a touch of black to lighten it more of a gray. Yeah, you can add a touch of black to give it a little more gray so that your blue has a little more blue gray in it. But you want it light, so you're going to want it like really watered down.
Okay.
So then you put it on your brush real lightly, and then wherever the shape of your vase is, I'm going to try to mimic this one here. And you're going to just start there with the real light, very little water on it. So you have just that light bluish tint, blue-gray tint. And you're just going to do the outline first. Create that little. Remember, look at where you're at and try to make sure that you're paying attention to the angle and draw what you see. So if there's a little divot, there's a little, just do the outline of it. And you can go back over and add your other colors and stuff in the interim. And then you just let that be you just do the outline first. And it has an odd shape to it. Okay. I have some stuff in the way. So I can't quite see all the way down, but I'm going to make that up myself here. So then with that kind of light bluish gray tone, you're going to just go make that outline in your head where that is. Put that down. And then I'm just putting a little shadow here because I'm going to put some more greenery in. And then that allows you to see where the vase is. And once you get the whole painting done, then you'll go back in and you can either, if there's a lot of water, you can do the water line. You can do a little bit with that, like let's say the water line's down here. You can kind of create a little bit of not quite a semi, but a little bit of an angled little hoop there. It gives you that perspective that it's in like a round object. Can you even see that at all from that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it gives you that. Then you can go in later and you can just sort of add a little bit more of that really light. It gives the perspective of the vase and the perspective of it being glass.
Okay.
So that's the best technique I've learned. And then once you go back in even further, let's say you want to get like where it sits on the table, then you can get, the outline around on the bottom, and then you can start to get more perspective from the table itself, where it's sitting on the table, some shadow, and you get a little bit more where you really start to show the depth of the vase. But you just want to have an indication of the vase because it's really hard to get. You don't want to necessarily put all blue there because then it's going to be hard. It's going to muddle after a while with the rest of them. And it gives you that perspective. It's a little bit easier that way.
Yeah.
Let's see. And sometimes it's just fun to see what else you can do. And so if you want to and then to add more dimension, you can add different colors to your greenery. And once it's dried, you can go back into and add little veins. It was interesting to think about all the things that we do to resist our creative selves in this experience. And I found that fascinating to me because it's like there's moments where I really feel like I get this like piece of knowledge, like, oh wow, I didn't know that about myself. And then I feel like I'm getting, close to a breakthrough of some sort. Like, okay, I'm gonna understand things better. I'm gonna do better. And then immediately, something stops me, and then I'm not doing it anymore. And then I'll be left with like, well, I used to love to do that. Why did I stop doing that? And these little blocks we do to ourselves, we don't realize we're doing it to ourselves. And I thought that was an interesting insight from just going through this process on this book and thinking about these things, the morning pages. So what about you? Did you guys have any like takeaways or, little things that you found interesting or preferred to, like, oh, you like this better than others, or made more sense?
No, I'm still kind of working through it. I'm finding it really hard to do the morning pages in the morning.
Yes.
So it's all about changing your routines up, and that's really can be a challenge for me.
For everybody.
Even though I know it's going to be good for me, it has been a challenge to change that routine.
Especially when it doesn't feel like, when you're going through those pages, I mean, I have to admit, you're going like, well, some days I'm tired, I'm half asleep. Like, how is this working? Like that kind of thing. And I think you can't help but wonder, like, okay, is this a waste? Am I, why am I doing this? I'm half asleep. How is this even possibly, registering as something beneficial? And then and then when you're not if you're not an artist, if it's not something you necessarily are thinking of doing, but you're just kind of enjoying the process, I can see how they can justify, well, maybe I won't do this today because I got other stuff I got to do. And I can see that being, a factor in all of this. But it was weird. Like, I don't know, about 2-3 weeks in, and I'm not, I'm still working on consistency. It's always the theme of my life, is consistency. And so I'm sitting there thinking, like, I would love to be able to do more, and do these well, but then I would not do it all the time. But when I would have these little moments where all of a sudden it just clicked, and I have like the most productive morning. I'd have like all this stuff that made sense. These ideas would be coming. Oh, I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try that. I would just, like, all of a sudden there was this sort of like flow that if I wasn't fighting it, or if I wasn't, complaining about it, all of a sudden it would come. And it was just in one sitting, like, all of a sudden, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that. And then it was just amazing that how much that would work. But it wouldn't always be all the time. And it would be, okay, I wouldn't see that again for another couple of weeks. But it was incredible to see it and to experience that. But then it would just be these ideas or moments where I just felt clarity. And I think that was the for me to see that how the pages actually work, because it's not something, I think it's just in the doing, in the letting your body, kind of be open to the possibility of what, the communication. Because I think for people, whether you're an artist, want to be creative, whatever, or just to be able to allow yourself, these pages are real meditations. And so they're meditations and clarity of what's in your heart and what's going on in your life, and the kinds of things that, matter to you. Sometimes we just get caught up in our life that we just don't pay attention to those things that we really want anymore. We just sort of get caught up in obligation and get caught up in expectations. And then we forget, the stuff that made us happy, or what was fun, or we enjoyed to do in our life. And that's the part that this is, it's a meditation to have time with God and your relationship with God, and then just allow that to, to kind of simmer. I think that's the part about it that apparently is probably the biggest piece of the pages, is as a meditation. So even if you're half asleep, it still works. Which sometimes I still wonder, but apparently there's this beauty in the mystery. Amy, you're very quiet. So how's it going over there? Deep in thought, contemplation?
Oh, my dog was barking, so I muted myself. Yeah, so I have for a very long time just had kind of like my morning coffee with God.
Mhm.
And I haven't really been doing the pages, but but I have been like writing a little bit more reflection after that time so that I have some documentation of it. So yeah, I think just kind of like adapting it to what I was already doing.
Mhm.
So I wish I could say I would love how this is turning out, but I don't. I feel like I should have stopped a while ago.
I think the colors are beautiful. You got some really nice intensity in your watercolor. They're beautiful. I can see it from here. I mean, like, and I have an angle on my computer, so it's a little bit,
I'm
but the
oddly,
colors are nice and intense.
yeah, oddly happy with like the stems. I don't know what's going on with these petals. Maybe I picked like there's not enough variation to.
Well, and that's the part that can sometimes you can go back in and all of a sudden like you can have yourself another, um, couple different colors, but maybe just give it a little different tone. Like maybe add some brown, maybe add some orange, and then you can give yourself a little bit of a way in which you're getting that depth in that particular petal.
Yeah. I also think I should have done like a background color maybe on the whole thing, but I can always
And
do it.
before I forget, and if we end up having to leave early or someone's got to go, I need to make sure I explain this too, because you may not be able to finish it in one setting, and that's okay. So I don't want anyone to feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't get done. But I do need to make sure I'm telling you this so that when you do get a chance to go back and work it again. Same scenario that I showed you from beginning to get that little corner so you can see the sky, the blue, the water. Now let's say your painting's dry or that you want to start to do more of a background. If you have yourself a nice flat brush like this one, it allows you to get that line. So it doesn't have to be this big, but you can use this one as an example. But it allows you to go right up to the edge of the painting with the water and just go like that. And then if you can naturally make your own and just go through, make sure the area that you want as your background, you can just make sure it has that water, just like we just did, so that you can go behind and add the background after the fact and go around. It needs to be dry because if you blend the wet next to another wet, you'll get the blending. If you want that, that's fine. But you don't, like here, I'm going to show you. If I go up here, there's that, it's going to do that. See how it just sort of bled into the,
Yeah.
So that will happen if it's not already dry. You can go back and fix that. Like I showed you before, you kind of just, as long as you can pick up that pigment, you can kind of help with that bleeding. It happens. But that's how you're going to go back in. So now I have that whole little section with water on it. And I can now go back in with the same type of blue or whatever you want, your background, and what you want it to be. Is it your table maybe that you're on, whatever that is. And you just go back and with that same scenario and you just go right up to that line because that's where the water is going to go where the water is. But if it's not, it won't naturally do it. So that gives you the time to be able to go and add that little piece in there and go right up to the dried line. And then you give yourself that whole background. So you can always add after, let's say, you have to go back and, okay, I'm going to do sky, or I'm going to do the table. And then you can do that particular color in that section. And you just go back in lightly. Now that happens, sometimes I get a lot of pigment. That was my fault. I added a lot. And that happens. So you just allow yourself to go back over and spread that pigment over. And then you can see how you can just kind of reset the pigment in different locations. As long as you're still moving and working the water, you can do that for a while. But you don't want to keep adding water. You want to make sure that you're kind of just moving the pigment. And you just give yourself, if you want a darker, like this is a very light wash here I have, this one here. I just wanted to show the picture, the lightness in the water, how it works. But you can, once, let's say you like that, but yeah, I want a little darker blue, like the nice vibrant blue that Amy has. You can definitely go back in and really put in that nice blue and really give it that, but another layer. You just don't necessarily want to do too much at one time. So if you get too much water, it can really saturate the paper so much that you can get a hole, or you can have weakens a particular area. So right now is a good time. You can add some more color, but do very lightly. Don't add too much water as you're adding another layer of color. Just the pigment will go with the water. So just allow yourself to kind of let that flow go. But that gives you the opportunity to go later. All right, and then this one, I just gotta see, how are we doing on time before I try to do something else? But I want to make sure I stress that about the going back in. You can always add that later on your background. Another little pieces. Let's say I get done with this, like, I want to add a cup of coffee there on my table. And so I'm going to put a table there. I'm going to have my cup of coffee. I'm going to have steam. So, okay, I'm letting that dry, but now I'm going to add a little piece. You can always do that later as well. You can just add your pieces as you go. And if you, let's say you want to go back in and work a piece, let's say like my little rose here. I got this little rose going. I really like it, but I kind of want a little bit more line in there. So what is nice is you can always go back in and do a mixed media. You can add pen, marker, whatever. There's a lot of soluble markers. There's a lot of different types out there. There's these different like water soluble colors. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff. But what's nice is that you can always go back in and let me see. I want to do a little. I don't have the right color in this one yet. We're going to try. You can always go back in. You can always add a little of a dimension or a little edge if you want to go back in and work a particular area to give a little bit more depth, or clean up a line that you wanted to be more clear about something. But you can always add that with either a mixed media or with a watercolor, and then you can go back in and add that a little bit of water to give it that same perspective. So it gives you a lot of options to be able to really work the painting that you want and create the look that you're looking for. So that really allows the kind. Can you see that little line there? It really gives a little bit more of a dimension. It creates that line. So if you wanted to go back in and really make that rose stand out, you can add a little color to it with the color pencil. Or you, again, total mixed media, go ahead and add an ink and do other things as well. That may also help if you're looking for a different look. The other part is, I was going to suggest to you guys is as you're going through this, you found these particular items that something you really enjoyed. It got your attention. The colors made you happy. Whatever that was that you wanted to do with this painting, or that you saw in the potential of doing this painting. Now think about the affirmation that may come to mind that you want to focus on, something that may help you to remember to relax, remember to trust the process, remember to be fearless, whatever that is, a one word, a phrase, an affirmation, something that's you may even want to put a little poem in your piece. So you can always add that to once your painting is dried, you can always add the writing later. You can add the writing on top, just like you did with the journaling. You can do that with your paintings. That gives you a lot more choices on that as well. So how do you feel, Helen? Is it coming along? Do you feel like, okay, starting to make sense?
Yeah, it's coming along. Have a long way to go to feel like I'm an artist. Just put it that way.
We're all artists.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we are all artists. We're all called to create, right? We just need to, you just have to make sure that we're not defining it as, like, we just have to see, like, art is in the eye of the beholder, and beauty is the eye of the beholder, but so is art. And that if you, like, everyone's going to see something differently. Like there's a painting, like, cubism isn't always something that people enjoy. Abstract versus
Oh, this is definitely abstract.
Well, I mean, but not everybody has the same, views of stuff. And so all of a sudden, like a painting that, you may find absolutely, horrendous. Like, what the heck is that? Somebody else is like, wow, look at the fabulous lines in that. That's amazing. Look at the work. I mean, and they get this critically acclaimed. You're like, critically acclaimed? What the heck is that? And you're like, but if you're looking at it from a different perspective, it does make it so that you're making this judgment on it, right? You're making a judgment on what it's supposed to be or what you think it's supposed to be. And if we do that to ourselves, then we shut ourselves down. The idea is that to allow ourselves the creativity is to allow us to be able just to have fun with the process. And that, that fun, whether it's, the most amazing picture you've ever seen, or whether it just makes you smile, is what matters. And for you to be able to continue to enjoy the process of these artist dates and enjoy the joy, because she also says like these things are not just about, maybe you're more of a writer, these are just to explore different options, things that you find, that allows you to express yourself and to allow that inner self to come out. So yeah, maybe, that's how we discover all these different things. That's why I wanted to have fun with different kinds of painting and fibers and different kinds of projects. The dream catcher, that was fun, actually. I kind of enjoyed doing macrame again. And then I tried to do a few more of those. And just the different projects in general are just fun to kind of just like, oh yeah, I forgot that I did do, like you said, like I did this in kindergarten. I really like this. And then, and then just to have that time to relax and allow it to, maybe sometimes it just speaks to you. So no judgments, no, like, okay, it has to be this way. No, it's whatever way it has to be. It's your way. That's what matters. And besides, you haven't done this for a while, so it's not like you're going to end up being, you're just kind of relearning some of the techniques. And once you learn it, like, okay, I actually kind of like working with watercolor. Maybe I'm going to try some more. Maybe I might take a watercolor class. Look at what's going on over at like your local art center. See what kind of classes they have.
There's actually some really cool just YouTube things too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I discovered this one I really liked. He's called, I forgot what it's called. Let's Make Art or something. They do watercolor, similar type of things. They do like, but they would do kits and stuff. And, but they would show you how to do different watercolors. And that was fun, different ways to do it, different kinds of, they have different experience, ones to work with. They can work together or on your own. So like, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm going back in and I'm kind of trying to add a little bit more detail to my current, to get little veins for my leaves. So you can always go back in and do that as well. Like, so if you decide like, oh, I really don't like the way that is, you can always make a couple changes. You can't do too many changes with watercolor, but you still can have some ability to make adjustments and get more of the look that you're wanting to achieve. Yeah, I discovered there's a whole bunch of fun stuff on YouTube. It's funny. The kids would always tell me, "Oh, just look on YouTube, Mom. Just look on YouTube." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll get to it." And I never would. I never did. Now it's like, oh, it's on YouTube. It's all there on YouTube. Sometimes my brush goes a little bit crazy. I'm gonna keep going over something. It wants to do something else. All right. So how's the progress coming? How are we looking?
Coming.
What do you think is a good contrasting, like should you use chalk or a different type of paint or pencils, or what works well with?
As far as a mixed media or
Yeah, mixed media, like adding definition.
it all depends on what you prefer to work with. So if you're just going to experiment, then let me see. We'll just open this up a little bit. Well, those colors are so pretty and vibrant. What colors did you get? You said you just got a new set. Those are beautiful.
I just used primaries. I didn't really mix too much, so I just have like a dark green, and I don't know, this brown actually looks more like a gold, but I kind of liked it.
Oh yeah, the pigment is really rich. I think it's beautiful. Not always easy to achieve with just a little, like the first time around. So that's really pretty. Let's see. I would probably just venture with that one. That well, how much detail do you really want to get?
I don't know. I feel like I need more definition in the, maybe even more darks in the petals.
Then I would first go back over with like you said, if there was a kind of a gold brown, I would add a little black to the brown or a little red. And and I would give that the kind of a little bit more in between to like outline your petal. That may give you that dimension you're looking for with just adding a little bit more pigment into the petal. Yeah, I would try that gold brown that you said with maybe, I'd start with red and then maybe add a touch of black. And then that way you can kind of get a little bit, not just black, but just a touch of it, and gives that little darker brownish tone. And that may help just try to go back into a petal and give you that little extra dimension you're looking for in the petal itself. But if you're looking for, like, you really want to outline it and you really want to have like this, like we go over your outline everything to make that stand out,
Yeah.
Then, you know, it all depends on what you have available to you. But I tend to like, if I'm doing mixed medias, I tend to like to go back in with either a pencil,
Okay.
and I'm either going to use the like a water soluble pencil, or I'm going to use an actual colored pencil. And then I'd
Okay.
go back in to do the detail that way. That tends to be, especially for that kind of color, that real rich color, that's where I'd probably venture to go. But if you really want like something different, you can add ink and just go with ink, you know, and you can really have a true, like really interesting mixed media. But the colors you have there, I'd probably try first the color pencil or the watercolor pencil. If you really want to kind of go back in that, get that little detail, that line.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious what you're gonna, that once you go back over with that brown and a little bit of red in there, I think you're gonna find that it's gonna give you what you're looking for. I would go in slow, make sure you have more water on it so that you don't like, oh my God, go in slow, because that's when people are gonna freak out. Like, no, I just ruined it. No, just you're gonna be fine. It'll be fine. Just go in slow with the pigment, and then you'll be able to like allow
I
yourself.
think you're right. Just adding a little bit of red made it a lot. I thought it was too red, but it's actually orange. So that
Yeah, it'll give that. Yeah, it'll give that more orangey color, which is more of what you're looking for to get that dimension in that petal. It should help to give it a little bit more. Yeah, I can already tell, even from that little bit there, that it's going to give you a nice tone.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to go back into the middle to get that more of that sunflower brown, then I would go ahead. If that's a goldy brown, I'd go ahead and add the black to that. And
Okay.
that way you'd get that darker tone in there, and you can really kind of really show that more of the sunflower center.
It's not this orange, but I think I'm going to add obviously some water for the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
I did not go over clouds with you guys at all. But basically, I should have done that. I'm sorry. I'm going to use the same as example so you can see.
we're not doing this, though. Why are you sorry?
Oh, I forgot. I'd be like, oh, I forgot. I didn't go over that. You're going to go over here. Like, I'm just going to show you so that you can see. I'm going back over the side for the, oh, back down again. Here we go. So I'm going to go here to show the, like a color sky. I'm just going to try to demonstrate.
It's better than mine. It's okay. But I was glad that you told me that I can go back in and put that background, because I was thinking I needed to do it before.
Oh, absolutely. What is nice about watercolor too is you can use all kinds of other little tools and fun devices to give you texture. You can use to give you watercolor too. If you want to get more water, you can use like different things to give you water. You can use plastic. You can do a variety of different things. But to get yourself you can go back in with a sponge, even your paper towel, and you can create, just kind of go back in and create like just a modeling of what would be a cloud in the sky.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then you can give like just a little, which is
What do
a sponge.
you do?
I'm just using a sponge. I've just added the blue into the sky back on this corner. I just added some more blue just so you can kind of see it. I would have mixed that blue a little better, but I'm just going back in so you can see the idea, like the sponge, a paper towel, any type of, even like a crinkled up plastic can offer that kind of texture within to give you that look of a cloud. But that's not it. Then what you're going to go to do is you're going to then use that same kind of graying color that I showed you about the vase, that kind of blue gray, cloudy gray kind of color. And you can go back in and kind of just create a little bit of shadow where the cloud would be. You can kind of see dimension within the cloud.
Oh,
And then all of a sudden you got yourself a little bit more in the, now if you don't want like too much gray, I'm just trying to give you so you can see it, but you can kind of offer that just enough to give a little dimension in the sky, give yourself that look of a cloud. And you can kind of allow yourself to have a little more fun with what's in the sky and even shapes in the sky. But I mean, if you can even make a cloudy sky if you want much more gray, a little deeper, make it kind of ominous looking, pensive. But you can do that throughout with that same kind of bluish gray, cloud gray, that you can kind of create the dimension of the cloud, and you can give yourself clouds. But the sponges, paper towels, those types of things can really give you a lot more within your sky as well, if you're looking for like a landscape. And I'm going to try to clean up a little bit of my demonstration, because now I got all kinds of stuff going on.
It's really pretty.
It is.
Oh, it's a nice little now this part is where I need to make sure that I show you, like, so when you go back in, if you do something like this, that does make it very frustrating. So if I want to add more color, but then this is not, it's not allowing me to go back in, it can be difficult to get the exact shade. That's why some people will do the background first. That way they get an exact shade, or at least a shade on there, and then they can always add more later. So it just depends on how you want to do it, but that's kind of why people will sometimes do a wash first in the background of their watercolor before they add anything, as long as they don't, if they don't really have a specific white that they're worried about to keep. But that's why I do like to make sure I get this, because sometimes if I don't like it, I sometimes will even cut out the piece, and I can always add a different background. A little X-Acto knives and cutting through, I can make myself a whole another painting. Yeah, definitely a little hot there. Sorry about that. It's 2:00, by the way, so I don't know where everyone is. I just want to make sure you guys know.
I'm good for a little longer. I don't know, Helen, if you needed to be somewhere.
I'm good for just a little bit longer.
All right. And they say when you lose track of time, that is a good sign that is what you're supposed to be doing, right? Like you're doing.
Oh, yes.
Feeling that part of you. There we go. Getting closer to getting a bit of blue in there.
Oops. Messed that up.
There we go. I'm gonna eventually get a blue in there. All right. I'm getting there. Trying to fix that one up a little bit. I was like, whoops. Not so easy. So Helen, I wanted to show you this so that you can see too. So you did the outline of your vase.
Yes.
So I did mine too, but now I went back over to kind of do a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
So now you can kind of see why. So
Right.
here, now you can kind of see that it's giving that indication that it's clear, right? So then you got that
Right.
more of that glass, and then you can go back in and add a little bit of that light tone in there to give it to that.
Yes.
It looks like more of the vase in the water.
Yes.
But it gets a little bit more of that perspective for the vase.
Right.
So hopefully they'll work the way I explained it for you.
Yeah, I somewhat followed your directions.
Sometimes.
I somewhat was able to do. I got my base a little bit darker, but it's all right.
Yeah.
The idea is there.
And it's really what you're trying to make an indication of it. So that's why you just got to kind of get that impression where it is, and that gives the illusion that it's there, that it's real glass. And now here comes the fun part. I'm going to add some more. Lots more. Mm-hmm.
Be right back. Okay, ready to see my masterpiece?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see it.
Looking forward. Oh, how pretty.
Ellen, that's
Oh, I love
gorgeous.
it. See, here y'all talking about see, that's what's so beautiful.
Oh boy, I've got a long way to see that, but thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. My goodness. Here you're like, oh, it's this. Oh, come on.
She has hidden talent she did not even know
You
about.
didn't realize it. There it is. It's coming out.
I don't know. I saw Amy's pictures before we started, and I was like, oh,
Wow,
it's so intimidating.
I feel like this is something.
Oh my gosh, you guys are doing great. It's great. So that's why sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit, right? We don't allow ourselves to say, oh, somehow it's an okay to be able to allow yourself to just have fun with it anyway. So
We're choosing an easy flower, but no, this is not an easy flower.
Yours looks good, Amy.
it's beautiful. I love the colors. The saturation of color is phenomenal with that.
Yeah, I love that blue.
It's just intense and beautiful. And it really allows, it's like, it really gives that, I don't know, I love blue. Blue's my favorite. So whenever I see like real intense color, it just, wow, that's pretty. You can't help but look at that one.
Okay, for our first try. I don't think I'm going to frame it.
Pretty.
So very pretty.
It
Very
looks
pretty.
abstract.
And again, remember that depends on what you want it to be.
Nice. Wow, like I said.
Right? Mine is still in, I wasn't done, but I'm just gonna show. So I'll show you so we can kind of finish up. Finally got the blues, but kind of blended in.
I love that.
Really
color.
pretty. I love that.
I still have a little cleaning up to do in there. Some more leaves would be nice, and a couple more flowers. But I think if I get there, I'll get there eventually. But thank you guys for joining me today and for having some fun and enjoying ourselves with a little watercolor on a beautiful day. Because it looks like both you guys have some nice sun coming in.
Yeah.
So,
A little bit here and there.
a little bit, which was perfect for that, right? So it allows us to be able to have a good time. So I really appreciate you coming in and joining me today with this artist date and just enjoying this last workshop for the artist way. So I really appreciate you guys doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. That was
Thank
quite
you.
an accomplishment. I'm
Thank
proud of
you.
you for doing that. I'm learning a lot. My sisters and my mom right now are having a great time with it. So
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that and the people are enjoying it too. Like you guys your family's enjoying it. So I just thank you. Thank you very much. Really enjoying that. So hopefully we can
Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have more fun with some more artist dates in the future, and we'll just keep looking for more opportunities to get together and just have a good time and create.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You guys have a good day and a great weekend.
thanks. See you later.
Thank you.